In Daniel chapter 2, King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. This is the same Nebuchadnezzar who conquered Judea and Jerusalem and burned down the temple and sent God's people into exile into Babylon. He raises Daniel and his three friends to a special position within the kingdom to learn the Babylonians' language and literature and ways and whatnot. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He wants to know what it means. He asks his wise men for an interpretation, but he's not going to tell them what the dream is. He wants them to tell him the dream and the interpretation if they are really have special insight. Daniel and his three friends pray and seek the Lord of heaven, and God gives Daniel an answer. And before Daniel goes to tell the king, he first gives a prayer of praise to God for answering their prayer. And I want to read that. Daniel answered to the God of heaven and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise. For you have given me wisdom and might, and you have made known to me what we asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's matter." There's a couple things in here that are particularly, first of all, just beautiful to see Daniel's love and gratitude towards God. But there's a few things in here that are, a couple things that are particularly fitting for apocalyptic literature and in general, where you've got dreams and visions going on. There's the mention that God is the one who removes kings and sets up kings. That's a feature of apocalyptic. It's looking beyond what we normally see in the physical realm with our eyes. There's a whole other spiritual realm going on, and apocalyptic literature looks at things from heaven's perspective. And so when we look around and we see kings and they have power and people fear them and do what they say, and kings go to war and conquer other kingdoms, and it all seems like really big, powerful stuff. Oh, to be a king. But behind the scenes, God sets up kings. He directs the king's heart as a watercourse. One of the Proverbs of Solomon says, God is the king over the kings of the earth. And so this type of literature really sees behind the scenes, not just what people normally see with their own eyes, but sees the far bigger spiritual forces at work behind the scenes. And then over and over again in this prayer of thanksgiving, wisdom, understanding. Here's wisdom, here's understanding. The revelation of deep and hidden things that were in the darkness are brought to light. You've given me wisdom, you've made known, you've revealed, you've made known. That's what apocalyptic literature is all about, is bringing things that otherwise wouldn't be seen, bringing them to light. Sometimes there's still an air of mystery because they're presented in symbolic form, but the idea of an apocalypse is a removing of the cover, taking the cover off, and bringing things to light into a fresh new form of understanding that would otherwise be impossible. So Daniel goes to Nebuchadnezzar and says, "I know what your dream was, and I know what it means." Let's read it. "You saw, O king, and behold, a great image. This image, mighty and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. The head of this image was of fine gold, its chest and its arms of silver, its middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them into pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold all together were broken in pieces, and became like chaff of the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that not a trace of them can be found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This was the dream. Now we will tell the king its interpretation. You, O king, the king of kings, to whom God has The God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, the might, and the glory. He's called King of Kings because he is a king who has defeated other kings. Now, of course, God is the capital K King of Kings who rules over all kings, but Nebuchadnezzar is a miniature King of Kings because he's defeated and ruled over the territory like the territory of Judah. He is a king who's conquered other kings. And into your hands, the God of heaven has given these things, wherever they dwell, the children of man, the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens, making you rule over them. You are the head of gold, O Nebuchadnezzar. Another kingdom inferior to you shall arise after you, and yet a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And there shall be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, because iron breaks to pieces and shatters all things. And like iron that crushes, it shall break and crush all of these other kingdoms. As you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom. But some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with soft clay. As the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle. As you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all of these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. Just as you saw that a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke into pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. A great God has made known to the king what shall be after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. Couple things I want to point out early on here. There's a great amount of language that really seems to borrow from things that we heard about in Genesis chapter 1, right? Men, children of men, beasts of the field, birds of the heaven. That sounds a lot like even in Genesis 2. There's the gold that the rivers flow past. So a lot of recurring themes. This is echoing Genesis 1. It brings to mind. We have these 4 kingdoms, and so there's going to be a sequence of 4 kingdoms, but the climax of the interpretation is that after these 4 kingdoms, there is going to be one kingdom that rises above all of these other kingdoms. In some sense, this kingdom to come, unlike these other kingdoms that are successively one conquers the next, the kingdom that is to come shall never be destroyed. It shall not be left to another people. It will break in pieces all of the other kingdoms, bring them to an end, but this kingdom itself shall stand forever. The idea of a kingdom standing forever sure sounds like the promise that God gave to David remember we saw that word forever 3 times in the Davidic covenant. Your kingdom will last forever. Your son will sit on the throne forever. His kingdom will last forever. So now we're talking about a kingdom that lasts forever. This seems to be a fulfillment of God's promise to David for a forever kingdom. When we move on to Daniel chapter 7, it's going to be a very similar thing about a series of kingdoms, and then one king and kingdom that seems to trump everything that's come before and be greater than all of it and last forever and have a greater king than everything that came before. Kind of the same sort of idea in greater detail, but the fact that the same thing, essentially the same sort of vision, once in a dream given to the Gentile king Nebuchadnezzar, and once given in a vision to Daniel. The repetition of the idea seems to be driving home that there's really something important going on here in terms of these 4 kingdoms followed by a eternal kingdom.